we are now able and ready with all of our settings in place. So Reverend Dr. Hedy Collver, let me turn it over to you, and thank you again for presenting and leading us in this COVID season conversation about connecting and what I think our title is Marketing and Ministry, but let me turn it over to you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Ted, and thank you for inviting me to do this. This is definitely something that I have been passionate about for a long time, the intersection between ministry and technology and what that looks like. And especially in a time like this, we're really becoming aware that it's something that is it's here to stay, but what do we do with it? So before I launch into, hopefully you all have the document that Ted had sent out yesterday. I wanted to do just kind of a quick survey first to find out where all of you are. So if you could unmute yourself, and then I would love to know how many people are using technology in a way they were not before COVID. So just gonna give me a yes.
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 Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
How many of you had to go through a really steep learning curve to get up to speed?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Think about 2 weeks.
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Okay. Okay.
Somewhat.
How many of you are live streaming your services right now?
Yes.
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 Okay, so a few of you. How many of you are pre-recording your service and then
I am.
launching on Sunday? So 2 people, 3 people. Okay.
I started live streaming, then started pre-recording.
Okay. Okay. So you started doing it. Everybody was still in the sanctuary, and then moved to the pre-recorded. Okay.
Well, started live streaming with the COVID, and then we started pre-recording because live stream wasn't working for us.
Gotcha. Okay. How many of you are doing church by video chat or Zoom, something like that? Okay, so 2 people. Okay. What about conference calls? So having people phone in. Okay. Yeah, and so those are the pieces that I've been hearing from most people, that those are the things that they have in place. And there are things that have worked in different ways and different contexts. And so that just helps me to kind of understand where you all are. How many of you have enjoyed this kind of uptick in using technology in your services? How many of you have enjoyed it?
Oh, yes.
How many of you wish it would go away? It's okay to be honest. There's like no judgment here, truthfully. None of you want to admit it. Come on, I know. Yeah, okay. So there's a few. Well, because it is different. And I'll tell you, so I am on the extroversion, introversion line. I'm just over into extroversion. So I thought that this time of, being alone was going to be wonderful because it was going to feed my introvert side. I cannot wait to get back into worship. It is killing me. I'm a techie, obviously. I've been working with Final Cut Pro. I understand how to put videos together. It has been completely exhausting doing that every single week. And so one of the things that I wanted for us to talk about today is, now that we're starting to see that the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel, that we are going to be going back into in-person worship at some point over the next few weeks and months. What does it mean with all of these things that we've now put in place? How many of you have an expectation from your congregation that what you have been doing over these COVID months with the online, the conference calls, the pre-recorded live stream, that you are going to continue that when we move back in? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so when I've been asking this question in other venues, I've been having kind of mixed answers, but I'm very curious about this. How many of you feel over these past few months like you have been working more than you had before? Okay.
Yes.
How many of you feel, even though you've been doing all of this work and trying to keep people connected and reaching out in every way you can, how many of you feel like you're still not doing enough, that you have that pressure on you? Okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you. That's super helpful for me to hear. Okay, so just a few just kind of background things so you know why I'm here, why you're listening to me, and why this is important to me. So I love technology. I was a director of communications at the first church that I served while I was a pastor. I think that there are a lot of ways that we can utilize technology in really healthy and exciting ways. But I think it's important for you to know that I was not always a fan of technology. The very first time that I was forced to use, and I do mean forced to use it, was as a requirement for graduation in college. I had to take a computer course. I took it pass fail. I hated it. I thought it was awful. And when my mom laughs now when she hears that I'm doing things like this, because she just can't imagine that that person could have just fallen in love with what technology can do for ministry. But I realized that one of the new realities of our world is that people are so connected online, that people find ways to be able to contact each other, to connect with each other, and that has now kind of become a second place where people go. The church used to be the place that people would go to for connection 50 years ago, 75 years ago. Now people are going online.
Mhm.
How do we connect with those folks? About a week and a half before all of this COVID-19 stuff broke, I had started a new website. It's called experiment.church. You can go to it. There's like nothing there because COVID-19 broke a week and a half later. But the whole point of it was to put all of these things that are in your packet into a really easy way for people to go on and access it and start to think about how they could use technology, experiment with it in their churches to find things that would actually work and help. So I want to just walk through. So on the first page of your workshop, we're not going to go through all of this because there's no way that we could actually get through all of this in an hour and change. But a few pieces that I really want to highlight for you. First is that one of the things that we have become really aware of in COVID-19 is the importance of technology. We were saying a few minutes ago before we started the recording that we've realized that technology, if we had not had what we have now, if this had happened 15 or 20 years ago, our churches would be in very different places right now because we would not have been able to connect with people. And so being able to use these tools in a way that help people is something that we are going to want to continue into the future. But what does that actually look like? And so technology, when you hear the word technology, what kind of things do you usually think about? What does that word technology mean to you? Oh, I think we have somebody's background noise. It's not an answer. When you think of technology, so when you hear the words technology in the church, what immediately comes to your mind?
I think the audio-visual systems on Sunday morning that we use for worship, and I know it's been at first folks were a little reluctant, but now they love it because they can actually see the words that they're going to be singing and proclaiming and so forth, versus the hymnals that the print is pretty small. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and that is an interesting piece right now coming back into live worship, because I've been hearing more and more about removing hymnals and Bibles from the pews because that could be a point of contagion. And so if you have that visual component in your sanctuaries or in your worship spaces, then you're able to use those so that people can still be a part of it, be a part of the liturgy, be part of the singing. Although there's questions about singing now as well. We're not going to get into that. And so having that technology in the sanctuary, that's one piece. What are other things that you think of when you hear church, technology in church? What about live streaming?
I think social media.
Social media, yeah. How many of you feel good about your social media presence? I'm not raising my hand. Okay. Yeah, social media is a constantly evolving thing. I keep finding out, it seems like every week, some new thing, especially that our teenagers are using. I thought I was cool because I had Snapchat. nope, they're not doing Snapchat anymore. And so being able to keep aware of what is happening is important, but being able to pick a few social media platforms that your church is known for really connecting with, and that become kind of a hub. I mean, that will be something that we'll be looking at in the future. So the social media platforms. What other kind of ways do you think of utilizing technology for church?
Now, pastoral care for me is taking on a whole new perspective and concept too, even in the sense of hospital visitations, and when that has been afforded, use of cell phone. And that particular technology in itself is, it's grown so fast. My wife and I often laugh about, we are old enough to remember before the little cell phones came out. And I remember, believe it or not, I remember when the large ones first came out. So those, those are things that, in a sense of being there with people, sharing with people. And I praise God for the technology to be there with them when they're going in, especially now, when no one else is allowed to be with them in a particular place or hospital or setting.
Right. And again, that will be technology that we'll be able to continue to utilize. I mean, we may have people who move away to be put, to go into a nursing home closer to family, and then at the end of their life to be able to still be with them by having someone hold up a phone for them so that you can see each other's faces. I mean, that is technology that can be really very helpful in those moments. Yeah. What about? I'm going to give you a little hint. What about what it is we're doing right now? How do you think that might continue on in the church? What are ways that this technology might be able to, once we're able to, hallelujah, finally be able to come back together for meetings and conferences, what is a way that this particular technology can continue to be used?
I think we, oh, go ahead. I think it's one, like if you have people who can't come to meetings, we could still do something like this and they could join in. So you can be more inclusive for those who might just not be able to show up that evening or something.
Yeah. How many of you have ever had a meeting, a really important meeting, especially where you had something that you needed to vote on and one of your folks or several of your folks couldn't make it because of traffic or some other scheduling conflict? And so having an option like this where we can still loop them in is a really great option. So I wanted to just do that really quickly because I think it helps us to see that as challenging as the season has been and as steep as the learning curve has been on utilizing a lot of these technologies, that what we have learned, we can continue in some ways that are really going to enrich our ministry. I'm gonna look, I want to actually flip over, oops, sorry, where did I just do it? Okay, I want to go to the second page. There's 3 marketing orientations. Now I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between technology and marketing, which may seem a little bit jarring at first, but I think it's going to be really important for us to be able to see how it is that we can utilize technology to get the message of Christ out. And so there are 3 marketing orientations. So if you take a marketing course, this will be one of the first things that they would ever talk to you about. They talk about sales orientation. A sales orientation to what it is that we are trying to communicate to our surrounding areas, to our people, is taking what we already do or what we already have and convincing them that they need it. How do you see that playing out in the church? And I don't do rhetorical questions, so jump right in.
Well, I see it playing out in the church because we have to really be on our A game, so to speak, now, especially with live streaming and so forth. When we do return back to music, in a sense, it will be a little different because of the speakers and so forth. Most of our equipment now is set up for just a voice audio instead of music along with that. Music brings the distortion, but the whole worship thing, you have to really be willing to, even I've seen emails challenging a point of that a pastor has brought forth in a sermon and so forth. And it also has opened up to a point of understanding. So that's all I can say about that right at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, I think that a good thing that has happened, even though it out of this COVID-19 moment, and it presented itself with a lot of challenges, it allowed us to see that the technology not only allowed us to come together to worship, but there are so many other mediums that we could use through technology, even with the issues of not being able to sing. We could have videos displayed, and the videos are the same gospel, all different types of music, genres of music, and therefore the singing could be included even during the in-house worship, even though the congregants they will not be able to do it, and we will not have the soloists there. But if you've got the big screens, then you've got soloists, everything, and there's no aeration issues whatsoever.
Yeah, that's right. And so finding creative ways like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've seen in doing live stream, and especially the pre-recorded, is that people are interested in seeing those various types of music. You know, they like different angles. They want to see something that's a little more creative. One of the things I've been hearing from so many people who are doing different types of videos is that they are learning from the feedback that they're getting from their folks, that there are pieces of live worship that don't translate to online worship. And so I want you just to imagine, you know, your sanctuary or your worship space, they come in, they sit, and basically they are a captive audience for the length of your service. And so if you have, you know, an awkward transition, or someone forgets it's their turn to get up to the microphone, or you know, something happens, like, not that that ever happens in your churches, that only happens in mine. But if you do that online, they're going to click off. They're not going to be engaged. And so it's helping us to not only look at, you know, how do we have a presentation that is really engaging for people online. It actually, I think, is helping us to, when we come back, to create something that's going to engage the people who are in our seats looking at us. Because I have often wondered when people are looking at me, and if they are doing that thing that my grandfather used to be really good at, where they're looking but they're really sleeping, you know, so like, eyes are open but, you know, they're not really there. They're thinking of what they need to get at the grocery store or whatever. You know, so we want to be able to create these worship services that are really engaging for people, and that keeps their attention. This is actually helping us to do that. That doesn't mean that it's easy or that we particularly like to change, but it is something that can be really, really helpful for us. Thank you.
One of the things that happened during Holy Week, I had service, you know, a small Anglican service with some music and so forth during Holy Week. And on Monday, I had used some canned music that artists, you know, I just pulled and I played. And I go back to check the video on Facebook, and it recognized the license and it blocked it. Yeah. So that was a learning curve. So then I just took my guitar and just sang the rest of the week myself. But that was a learning curve too, because the music was a big part of that, you know, the meditative piece and so forth. Sure. And I go back to check the video and it's not there. It's blocked out.
Yeah. And Sherry, that's a really important piece of awareness. I've been wondering all of these weeks, these 9 weeks, what's happening, because while I was still in the local church and on the district level, companies were doing that sort of watching and then just sending a letter saying, you owe us money. Yeah. And so the copyright laws haven't changed. I wondered if companies were just ramping it up and putting more people on the watch for copyright violations, and I've been concerned about it. But it's good to know, as a proactive thing, they simply blocked you instead of sending a letter saying you owe us money.
Yeah,
it happened right then. I mean, I went back within within 20 minutes, it was blocked. I mean, it
Yeah,
was just right there.
YouTube, Vimeo, all of the major video platforms, they have algorithms now that can recognize. So this is an example, something I didn't think about. I did a sermon, and it was on a knock at midnight, and I found Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an audio file of his reading the scripture. And so if you're going to be preaching on that, and you can actually have King's reading the scripture, I mean, that was awesome. Well, it recognized that was not my voice. That was Dr. King's voice, and it got booted off as well. And so you're thinking about making sure that we have the copyrights correct. I mean, those are all things that we hadn't had to think about previously, but we do now. And one of them is, I don't know if you have the CCLI license. So CCLI, the standard license, does not cover streaming. And so if you are streaming, even if you put your CCLI license up there, which you should do on videos, if you don't have a streaming license, which is an extra fee, you can still get in trouble. So, but if you go to CCLI, you can get that fairly easily.
Thank you. That's a piece I did not know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, so there's so much that we are learning as we go through this. Like, I didn't know about the streaming. We had never worried about that previously. And so when I went back to just to make sure that we were okay, we realized we were not. And so we very, very quickly made that happen. But, you know, a lot of people are having to kind of butt up against that now. So with the sales orientation, so the three different orientations. So sales orientation, taking what we have and then just putting it out there and trying to convince people that they need it. I think that has kind of been the modus operandi of the church for almost as long as we've been the church. You know, that we have a product, we understand the incredible gift that Jesus Christ is, and we want people to have that gift in their lives. But what we're doing is we're telling them that the way that we have it and the manner in which we are giving it to them is the end all be all, and that they should accept it. And then we get frustrated when they don't. Has your church ever done that? Invited people to worship or invited them to an event, and then not many people came, and it's deeply distressing. Yes. Okay. So that sales orientation. Customer orientation. This is actually the orientation that makes people the most nervous about utilizing new technology. And so it is figuring out what people want and giving it to them. And so often when I'm talking to people about technology in the church, they will say, well, I don't want to be a mega church. I don't want to have, 20-foot screens and all of this this audio equipment that's booming. I don't want to have multiple camera angles and all of these lights. And, that we are, a beautiful traditional church with a lovely sanctuary. We don't want to do that. And so what we're doing is we're thinking, okay, so that's what people want. They want big and flashy and super technologically advanced. But what we're learning is that that's really not what people want. What people want is authentic and easily accessible. If you try to be something that you are not as a pastor, as a leader, something that you are not as a church, you will fail. I have nothing against large churches that do that. I've worshiped at many of them. I've been a pastor at one of them. But I do not take those ideas and try to import them directly into whatever church that I'm in, because it doesn't fit. You have to find for your context what is going to work the best, and for your personality as well. So what you're trying to do is not force that what you think other people want onto yours, but to be able to understand a little bit more about what people truly do want. And that is actually the third one. So the market orientation. The market orientation is understanding your community. Understanding what it is that people desire, what it is that they're looking for, how it is that they are feeling connected or disconnected from God, and being able to find ways to utilize technology, because that's what we're talking about specifically right now, to utilize technology to make that more easily accessible for them. We, again, have been forced to do that during COVID-19. We were not able to just have a sales orientation and invite people in, because we had no place to be able to invite them into. They had to stay home. we didn't really have a whole lot of buildup of time to be able to push into a customer orientation because we had to use whatever technology we could get our hands on, whatever we knew, whatever we could quickly ramp up to do. And so we have really been trying to find ways to connect with people in a market orientation. So you all have likely been doing this organically, but what I want to do is help you to do that in a more conscious way now that we're going to be moving into this season of transition between the online and in person. And so what I want to do is really very briefly help you to do kind of a short technology marketing plan. And again, we're not going to get through all of this. And let me tell you also that if you do want to explore this a little bit more and you're getting stuck when you're reading through this later, you can always contact me and I'll be happy to work with you individually. There's no cost for that. I'd love to help people to walk through that. But at the bottom of that marketing page, how do you actually start to do this? How do you start to talk about what do I need to do? What is the first step that I need to do? Well, the first step is actually figuring out where you are now. So where you are now and what you've been doing for COVID-19, what has been working for you, what has not been working for you, and then looking where you want to go. So what we often will do is, say, I know where I am right now. And so now I need to do this next thing and do this next thing. We want to actually have a vision of where we want to actually be. Do you want, for example, to launch an online campus? Is that something that is interesting to you? Do you want to have technology that's going to help you to live stream on the weekend? Do you want to have 10 different Zoom Bible studies? Wherever it is that you think you want to be, and that will help you to get each of those steps to be able to get to that place. And so where you are now, where you want to be, and then that will help you to have the steps in order to get you to where you want to go. And that seems pretty self-explanatory, but if you have trouble getting through that, let me know. Okay, now we're going to flip to the next page. So this is a not rhetorical question. Who is it that you in your churches is called to reach? Who are you called to reach?
The world.
Thank you, Lyle. Okay, so yes, so this past weekend, Ascension Sunday, I don't know if any of you are talking about Ascension Sunday in your churches. One of the things I talked with my church about is my frustration with Jesus in this, because Jesus gives the disciples the biggest possible job. He starts out, be in Jerusalem and you're going to share the message here. Then you're going to go out to the countryside in Judea. Then you're going to go to Samaria, the place that nobody else wants to go. And then you're going to go to the globe. So, I mean, this is really, really big command, right? And that is our command. But each of our churches and each of us as pastors, are we called to reach the world? Each of us individually and as churches. Yes and no. We are called to be open to the world, to be invitational to the world. But God has placed each of us in a very particular context. So we are in a city, we're in a town, we're within one particular Christian denomination, we're in one family of faith. And so who is it that group is called to reach in your community? That does not mean that you are not called everybody in your community, but you have a particular set of skills, you have a particular field to your church that is going to appeal to a segment of your community especially. And so I want to help you to identify that. And so at the top of the page where it says research, we're actually going to in just a moment do a quick breakout session, just about 5 minutes. And so I'm saying that so Ted can start to do that. So understanding that you're called to reach the world, but who are we called to reach right now here in our particular context? 3 different things we look at in marketing. First is a customer. I'm actually going to do company first. What is your purpose? So many of you for your churches have had visioning teams. You may have something like written up in your sanctuary on the wall that tells what your vision is. Being able to make sure that you know what your values are. What is it that you stand for? What is it that your company is able to offer that nobody else will? And we use the word company just because if you do any marketing, it's going to always talk about that particular word. Who is the competition? So right now we talk often about churches being our competition. So we're in competition with the Baptist church down the road or the Catholic church. Those really are not the competition, because we have more unchurched people in most of our communities than we have people in churches. We need to find out what is the competition that is drawing people away from our churches and to other places. So one of the things, I lived in Alexandria, Virginia, when I was serving a church there. I did a little research, and what I realized is that Whole Foods, which was right around the corner from where I lived, and that the entire community, it seemed, was showing up for Wine Wednesdays at Whole Foods. That was a competitor. We had Wednesday night programming that we were looking at doing. What are the competitors that for what it is you are offering in your area? Part of that is technology. What is it that people are utilizing on technology on YouTube, on the web, on video, all of these different platforms? What are they going to instead of going to your resources? So your studies, your prayer time, your worship services, what are people looking for in that? And then the last piece, the customer. So being able to determine truly who your target audience is. And so what I want you to do, and I'm going to ask Ted to break you apart for just a moment. You are going to work together for your different churches. Thank you for the thumbs up, Ted. You are going to think about for your particular church, with each other's help, what it is that your competition is. I want you to focus on that. And who it is that you think coming out of this COVID-19 time that you would be able to focus on reaching with your technology as you have it now. Does that make sense? And then we're going to come back and talk about it a little bit. Okay, thumbs up if you got it. Okay, all right. So go to your
folks,
breakout set.
we have the breakout room set. I'm going to open the rooms now. It's just going to randomly assign you to breakout room groups. You can come back whenever you're ready. So it looks like the three of us are in a breakout group. Sung Woon and Brian, do you want to jump in on some of the conversations, please?
So we're discussing competition.
Yeah, we're discussing competition. We're discussing our target group. We're discussing those kinds of things. I think when Lau answered the question, who's our target audience, and Lau said the world, I think some of that conversation and some of the question is more specifically actually focused on our community. Who are the folks in our community?
Right.
Some of that I wonder too, who are the folks we've been reaching who had not come in person to our worship and into our sanctuaries?
Well, I think for us, just to name one of the biggest competitions, two of them is baseball, and the other one is the fire station. It seemed like for almost 5 years, no matter whatever we did at the church, the fire station had a meal or an event happening that same night, and everyone in the town drawn to the fire station versus coming to somebody. Not necessarily naming churches as competitors in our community, but in the small town that we live in, we do have 12 churches, almost as many as in the city. So that disperses a lot of people in different directions who do go to church. For me, one of my biggest target groups of focus have been trying to figure out how to get families coming. We have a lot of, single folks or couples. We've started getting a few families here and there starting to stick, which is good. But families and young people to bring some of the new energy back into the church as well.
Yeah. One of the things that we're also looking at is, from a conference standpoint, the question was raised yesterday, if we could now set up cyber full CEU events. For half CEU, that's 10 hours of contact time. That's an interesting question because what I've found is that Zoom is really exhausting. Cyber conferencing is exhausting. And I think the logistics would be how do you do a full CEU event, but break it up so that people can stay with it without just getting totally frazzled within a number of hours. So I think it's a good idea. I think it can be done. It's just working out the nuts and bolts.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing I've heard that I know that some places are looking at now is because they have begun to reach folks that they actually did not reach before. And I mean, one congregation that I've heard from the pastor, they were seeing 80 people in worship. And now the consistent log on is exceeding 250 to 300.
Right.
And they know they don't want to lose those numbers. And they know that those people aren't going to come in person.
Right.
They've been doing a pre-recording on Thursdays, and then showing it on Sundays. So what they're looking at is continuing the pre-recording. And just
that's the exact same thing I've been considering too, is, we started off with the whole Facebook Live. And what was happening is I think there wasn't enough bandwidth for all the churches doing it. So it was cutting us off, and we'd be going through the service, and all of a sudden we realized maybe 10 minutes later it cut off, and we have to go back and retrack and try. And then we'd end up with 3 different videos for one service. So that's when I started pre-recording it. And what I've realized is the creativity that can go into the pre-recording versus the live stream, which live stream was me sitting in front of the camera by myself. Pre-recording is I've got music. We've got people who are doing songs, pre-recorded songs. We can purchase some of these little fun videos or skits that we can put into the service, and it creates a dynamic that we can't even do live sometimes, that people can be a part of. I've always been intrigued with creating our own videos for the church. I never knew how. So this has even created an opportunity for me to learn how to edit and create videos for afterwards that we could still project on our screen during a live worship service. One of the technology aspects now is how do we integrate the live stream with the technology we already have in worship into one. So what we're doing, we're not duplicating, so we can live stream and have everything be like when we use slides, it still pops up and you can see that in the video. That's our next learning curve.
Yeah. What's your learning curve in terms of the reopening in person and music and the whole thing about singing and projecting multiple distances, we're told? What have you all given that some thought, and what's?
Well, we're still trying to get our team together. It's been 2 weeks, and trying to get our schedules organized to get together has been challenging. I think right now what the consensus is most people are more willing to either do a drive-in to come together that way for the time being, or stay doing the online. We want to come together, but there's still so many people with fear, and a lot of folks don't want to have all of the added steps and being together. They'd rather kind of just be together where they are and kind of not have to worry about all the extras at the moment. So we're still working to getting things in place, but I think
it glitched out for just a second there at the tail end.
Sorry.
That's all right. What were you saying at the
Oh,
tail
I
end?
was just saying that I think more people would probably where at least we could have a soloist versus coming into the building and not being able to have any singing whatsoever. We're a very musical church, so to cut that out cuts a lot of who we are out of our worship.
That's absolutely true. I mean, what we know is that two of the pieces that are strong draws and fundamental to worship are music and the proclamation. And
Right.
if you take out music in any live capacity permanently, I think it's just not going to be as powerful. It's not going to be the same. And I've been to a lot of services where there is canned music. And some of that mixed with some live stuff, but it's very different. It's a different kind of worship experience. Were we given a time limit, Brian? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Well, let me see well, before I bring people back, do you want, were there other pieces of the conversation that you wanted to? Hey, Moonsop. Looks like people are coming back. I couldn't remember if we had a time limit and.
Well, I know that there is a way to set it so there is the time limit so people automatically come back, but I didn't see that we had done that. So that's another one of those little toggles.
So that's okay. We're just going to close all the rooms and bring people back now.
Okay.
So the rooms will just close within the next minute or two.
Super.
Yeah. So let's see. Folks are probably getting a heads up that their room is closing soon, and
yeah, it gives you a little countdown so you can wrap up your conversation. It's not rude and just cuts you off.
Yeah, and I'm watching the countdown now. Yeah. So.
All right, people are coming back in. All right, so I'm going to actually, so the folks who are here, I'll catch the other folks up because we only have a few. This is an hour long, is that correct, Ted?
So it's an hour for the bulk of presentation and then about 10 minutes or so for any closeout conversation. So we targeted 75 minutes maximum.
Super. Okay, I want to honor that. Okay, so I'm going to have everybody go to this page, the grid page, because I want to walk you through a piece. And again, I knew I gave you way too much material in this, and if there's anything in it that you're interested in or have questions, then please let me know. I'll give you my email address before we go. So this is called Ansof's Matrix. Ansoff was a man ahead of his time. He actually came up with this in 1957. And this is a... Hold on.
So you got Food Line, you got Kroger, all the world.
Did we lose? Oh, I was going to say, didn't know if we lost
I wasn't sure if you were talking to us or if you were, okay, so.
No, I think that was just some background sound in a space.
Gotcha, okay. Okay, so on this, it's actually a very, very simple grid. So on it, you can use this for any type of program that you're trying to use. We're going to talk about it specifically with technology. And so there's two pieces. There's product and there is market. And so this is what you have, and this is who you're trying to reach. And so the top one is an existing product. So this will be like your Sunday morning worship service for existing market. So the people who are currently attending your services. This would be a way to get your existing product to your existing market. Down here would be a new market for your existing product. So this is kind of where we're talking about the sales orientation piece, taking what it is that we already have. And, oh, Ted, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you. and being able to get new people into that. What I want to focus on really briefly is the section over here under the new product, because that's really what we're talking about with technology. So the top piece is a new product for an existing market. So how are you connecting with your people that you already have in your system via technology? And so the people who are connecting to your live stream are likely some of your current folks. The other piece, though, diversification, that bottom right-hand quadrant, is a new market with a new product. Do you all do fresh expressions? Is that a Virginia thing as well? It is, okay. So
Yes.
basically, this is fresh expressions. And so what I'd love to just brainstorm for a moment, we've been talking a little bit about a new technological product for the people that we are already reaching. What would be a way that we could use technology to reach people that we are not currently reaching at all? And so that would be that fresh expressions or the diversification section here. What are some ways that we might be able to do that? Okay, let me make it, even bring it down a little bit more. For those of you who are going to be continuing to live stream or to do a pre-recorded service video, what are ways that you might be able to reach a totally new market with what you're putting out there?
Well, we had talked about just recently in our Thursday community chat with the pastor, our first one, we did that last Thursday. Because I used to go to Starbucks for community hours on Thursday. And then it's like, well, why can't we go downtown to the gazebo and do live down there and just sit around and chat, because the gazebo area is where a lot of people, especially elderly people, hang out during the daytime, and young people hang out, especially this time of the year when it starts getting warmer and so forth. So why can't, it's kind of along the model of reaching new people. Why can't we take it to the streets, so to speak, and do the live thing right there, and maybe even interview some people, those type things. Just get a little crazy with it, and no inhibitions. Just take it out there to the streets. Because in the town that I live in Front Royal, where the churches are, there's a lot of community things, as I said earlier, that go on, and why not utilize those opportunities?
Yeah, and that addresses both what Sherry, you were saying, and also Jennifer in the breakout group that I was in. That one of our competitors is activities that are happening outside the church. So community activities, parks, other kinds of recreation. If we can take our technology to those places, record ourselves there, to be able to do interviews, which Sherry, I think is a fabulous idea, because if you want to get someone to watch your video, you put their face in it. They're coming to see it once you do that, but also for them to see the church, not just in the church, in the sanctuary or in the worship space, but to actually have a picture of you out in the community and to be able to see that is an incredibly engaging thing. And if people see you, they're curious about why, and then they may watch it also. So that is a great way to use technology to bring new people in. What are some other ways that you might be able to reach a group maybe that you've always wanted to reach in your community by a new application of technology that you have?
I think with doing the live stream, this has just opened up a whole new thing, because one of the groups of people are people who work on Sundays. So how do we reach them? When they can't be in worship, but they want to be. So what I have noticed is, since we've live streamed, we do have a number of people who I do know from the community who are tuning in, but they could never come to worship because of their work hours. So that's been kind of nice to be able to include them in that.
Yeah, and recognizing that not everybody is able to come to a worship service on Sunday morning. Some people, because they built up scheduling, they're not able to. Some people because they aren't well and aren't able to Some people because they like sleeping in on Sunday morning, or they're spending time with family. And so knowing that we have an ability to archive our services or find other ways to be able to have recorded content for them anytime they want, totally asynchronous, then we are still engaging with them. The big trick, and the thing I think we can really use technology in a new way to reach these new people, is to be able to create ways within that content for them to continue to engage afterwards. So it's not a one-off. And so in that content, to be able to say, if you would like to access, this class that we are doing, it's not at a particular time, go on, watch the video, make comments, or to be able to set up an online counseling session, or there's so many ways to be able to do it, but give them something that they can then follow up on. One of the other pieces that I know has been a real big frustration for people doing the online worship is that when people are in our worship service, we can see their faces. And so we know that we're not really sure who is there, who's checking in, who's checking out, who's there for the whole time, who's there for a minute. And so to be able to find ways to have people want to connect, having an easily accessible like virtual connect card, or something that if they type in their name, they're going to be able to get some information that they really want, to be able to access like an online vacation Bible school or something like that. And so finding ways to be able to have people who are already connecting in this new way, just kind of testing the waters, to know that there's something else for them in that, so that they want to then continue that relationship. And so that's one way to reach a market that you wouldn't have reached before. Another really big way is as simple as encouraging your people to share. So if they have something, they see it, and they are excited about it, to know that this is not proprietary content. We want people to put this out. We want people to share it. We want it to go as widely as possible. So like we're offering an online vacation Bible school, and we told people in Miami, send it anywhere. And so now we suddenly have people in Brazil and who are signing up for it. Well, they are probably never going to come to our church on a Sunday morning, but they are connecting in a new way. So it really does open up some really neat things. Jennifer, you look kind of psyched. Was there something you wanted to say?
You mentioned Vacation Bible School. And so the way our church is doing VBS this year is via what we're calling subscription boxes. Because, those are huge right now. Yeah. And so the VBS will be online through a Facebook group. And then each week, the kids will get a new box with the VBS activities that they can do at home, like the kids that have registered. And then we were able to advertise it through Facebook groups and local like blogging networks and stuff. And we have, we got, I think, 97 families this year. And lots were new faces. And so really promoting it through those new avenues and using that subscription box method has been intriguing for folks.
Now I'm curious.
Jennifer, is there any limit to how many you all can handle in a cyber vacation Bible school?
Well, I think we had to set a deadline, of course, because we have to take shipping into account and the cost of materials. So in some ways there's not a limit. In some ways there is, because of budgetary constraints. But there's definitely potential to open it up to a much larger group.
Yeah.
Can you educate? What is? I'm sorry. I need to be educated on subscription box. What is subscription box?
So they're kind of popular right now, and you can. It can be on any topic. Like you can order a subscription. You can just Google subscription box, and you'll get all kinds of results. Perfect. But they can be related to crafts or product promotion, that sort of thing. And so people pay for monthly or quarterly subscriptions to have Happy Mail sent to their door. And so we just kind of used that image to talk about how we were getting the materials sent out to them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really, I know we're getting towards the end, I really want to encourage you. So at the bottom of this page right here, this little graphic, we can wait and in the church think that if we try something, we're going to have to do it forever. Try things, find out, what it might be a good idea, boldly and with incredible joy, go for it. If it totally implodes, don't do it again. If it is somewhat successful, take the parts that were successful and run with those. And if amazing, like it sounds like this subscription box of VBS will be, market it. Other churches would love to do this. And so, I mean, it's a great idea. Also, I mean, pool your wisdom, because you are all, each of you in your individual context, you're going to come up with ideas that nobody else will. And so one of the things I love that you're doing on this, Ted, is that people are getting to hear from each other and to share all of those ideas. So definitely continue to do this. And being able to do it by this technology is a really simple way. You don't have to drive all the way to another city to be able to meet with folks. You just pop up on a Zoom call and get to do that. So,
is there a link or something that somebody might type into the chat for the subscription box thing?
For the VBS in particular?
Yeah.
I can find one and share it.
That'll work. And then we'll put that as a part of the recording and what we release as well.
Very cool. All right. Anybody else with ideas that you have reaching a new group in your community through something new with technology? I believe Ted, back over to you. And I have to tell you that even knowing that we weren't going to get through all this, I didn't get through half the stuff I wanted to get through. That often happens.
Now, I understand. And again, we're really just delighted to be able to have the time and to push ourselves to think and explore and to know that one of the primary goals and appreciation for clergy asking for this topic in our COVID season conversation was folks desiring to just keep going beyond their brick and mortar. And that's something that I think remains. We've always had that desire, I think, but COVID has forced us.
Yeah, it's really brought home to us because most of us have not been in our spaces for over 2 months, that the church really is not about the building. And if we say that the church is the hope of the world, we're talking about the people moving out into the world to make a difference. And this is a great way to do that. It's forcing us to.
Yeah, and I think one of the best messages we've seen in some circles is the pushback to all of the secular news that says churches have been closed and are now reopening, and the pushback of, no, we never closed. We may not have been in person, but we did not close, we did not shut down. That's an important message as well. Let me see if we have any just questions or last thoughts that anyone might want to share before we sign off. And again, great job with the link. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. If you look in your chat section. Again, if there are future topics, we do think we'll probably do a listening session next. But if there are future topics that you'd like to see, we've set these up so that every 2 weeks we've been able to come together. We've also had the question of whether we would set up a CEU webinar series like this. And so we're looking at those logistics. The only thinking through on that one is our CEUs in Virginia require 10 hours of contact time for a half hour for 1/2 credit. 10 hours is, that's an awful lot of time on Zoom. And so we'd have to really find a way to do those logistics without having people go brain dead within the first 4 hours. But let me stop there. Any thoughts you want to share? Any other questions? And again, any future topics you might want to drop into the chat box.
One of the things that I noticed during our Zoom worship services is that members of families come together where a distance would have kept them apart. I have families at one church that Zoom in from Alexandria, and I'm located in Roanoke, to be in the same community of worship with their mother and father. So that's one of the plus.
And that's actually a pretty cool promotional piece. Families are gathering from different locations. Sure.
Yeah, and you probably have also experienced people who have moved away and are no longer physically a part of your community, but kind of checking back in. And so it really is a great way to connect. And especially, I mean, people, although not as many people will be going away on vacation this year, likely, but people on vacation who can still be a part of your community while they're away. So it's a great tool.
Brian says, appreciate some tech support, education on hardware and programs and how to go about utilizing new tech. If you're in that situation, definitely contact our communications office. All of our emails are the same, so that's Nick Ruxton, Nickruxton, Nick Ruxton at vaumc.org. And Nick will help you with the technology side. If it's tech stuff, then you're going to contact Brian Compton, Bryan Compton at VAUMC. And those will be the two ways that our IT department and our communications department are geared up and ready to help with both sides of this thing, communications and technology and equipment and the whole 9 yards.
And if anybody is interested in kind of exploring how it is that you could create new products using the technology and be able to really kind of fine tune that, I put my email in the chat, and I mean, call me, we can set up a time, we can Zoom, and can walk you through it, because I know that you all have you have a lot to be able to give to reach out to your communities, and I want you to be able to do that. So if I can help in any way, let me know.
All right. Well, folks, we thank you again for joining in. We are especially grateful to Reverend Dr. Jennifer Collver at Coral Gables. And every time I think Miami, I'm thinking it's got to be a better setting than the ups and downs. And that's just probably wishful thinking.
There is no perfect place, but I think Miami is pretty close.
Yeah. So we thank you again, and thank all of you. If you'll look out for our conference web postings, you'll see that this recording will come available, and then you'll be able to share in your congregation with others who are looking for the information. And so just word of appreciation to all of you, and stay safe, friends.
Can I pray for the group before we close?
That would be wonderful to have a closing prayer. Thank you.
God, I thank you so much for each person who's been a part of this today and for the communities that they represent. I ask you to continue to bless them, God, during this time, which still has so much uncertainty. I ask you to give them the strength and resilience that they need. And also, God, a joyful vision for what the future will be, to be able to march forward with you, knowing that wherever it is that we go, God, you are already there, and you'll meet us, and you'll give us what we need to be able to be there. God, so we ask you to be with us now. We ask you to help us, give us energy, give us everything that we need to be able to make the difficult decisions that we need to over these next few weeks. God, I ask you to bless each and every person. Let them know how loved they are by you deep in their spirits, and let them go forward with joy. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Bless you, Virginia Conference.
All right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.
Amen. Bye.
Thank you.